morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. So the topic for our webinar today is assessing, planning, and automating your transition from legacy BI to Amazon QuickSight. So first, I want to introduce Ironside to those of you who haven't worked with us before. We're a data and analytics consultancy that's been helping customers make better decisions with data for over 20 years. And the context for that today is around understanding your options for your future enterprise reporting platform. We here at Ironside have been developing enterprise reporting solutions as a company for those 20 years with literally hundreds of years of experience on staff in many of the legacy reporting tools. And today we're going to be talking about bringing those use cases and functionality to Amazon QuickSight. So I wanted to go through introductions here. So I'll introduce myself first. So my name is Scott Masage. I'm the practice director for BI at Ironside. I've been here 9 years and 1 day. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jose.
Thank you, Scott. Hi, everybody. My name is Jose Kanako. I'm a product manager at Amazon QuickSight, and I lead the BI and the reporting areas. I've been with QuickSight for about 6 years, so through the journey of evolution of the product, and very excited to be here with the Ironside folks.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Chris Eller. I'm the business lead for AWS at Ironside. Been working on building out the Ironside business and the relationship with AWS for close to 2.5 years.
Hi, I'm Terry Hinton. I recently joined Ironside, and my responsibilities are really orchestrating all the initiatives across Ironside and coordinating with our colleagues at AWS to create great customer outcomes.
Okay, thanks all. So in terms of the agenda, Jose is going to take us through the AWS point of view on the BI opportunity. Chris is going to talk a bit about the perspective of our customers on their BI strategy. And then I will cover our perspective on enterprise reporting and what we think the top 10 features are. We'll take a look at what is a typical enterprise report in the legacy tool, and then we'll show that same legacy report reconstructed in QuickSight. From there, we will introduce a set of tools and methodologies that we refer to as Ascentiq. And then we will talk about how to engage Ironside to begin this journey for yourselves. So with that, I will turn it over to Jose.
Thank you. So I think my view on this, and we're going to look at the view of how we look at use cases at AWS. So we are, from the BI standpoint, we see 3 distinct use cases come up as we've worked with customers throughout these years. The first being that every customer that's moving to the cloud requires a cloud-first, very scalable BI tool that can be extended to hundreds of thousands of users, so any person in the company. And that typically means interactive dashboards that can be filtered and drilled down and all of those different interactions. But at the same time, there are operational reports that have existed in these companies, in our customers, for decades. Now, there is a need for both interactive dashboards and reports to be moved to the cloud, and we at Amazon QuickSight are building the capabilities to get there. And Scott and Chris will walk you through some of those capabilities as they walk through the demo. But it's very important that these baseline capabilities are present so that every customer can move their reporting and dashboarding to the cloud. Now, the second big use case that we see for BI in the cloud is self-serve analytics with machine learning. Now, at its most basic nature, this means that end users, who are the readers or simply the consumers of data, need to have a way to interact with the data, to consume that, and to ask questions. however they want. In the traditional model, this has meant taking a BI tool, building your own dashboards, learning the language of BI, so to speak, and to then use that to inform themselves. However, we found that that can be quite onerous on the end user, who typically has a lot of things going on. And so we've worked with our machine learning teams to come up with simple natural language-based querying called Amazon QuickSight Q, which augments the use case one that we talked about, which is our dashboards and reports. Now, Amazon QuickSight Q, along with a host of other augmented analytics offerings that we have in terms of anomaly detection, one-click forecasting, natural language narratives, forms that second layer, which is self-serve analytics with machine learning assistance, all built on the machine learning technologies that we've built at Amazon. And the third big use case that we see in BI as BI moves to the cloud is embedded analytics. And we see that there is a need for both reports and dashboards to be embedded. And the embedding need is not just from, as you can imagine, SaaS applications, which require these analytics to provide dashboards and reports to their end customers, but also from enterprise teams, which might have small or large use cases that require insights to be delivered to customers. So these insights need to be delivered in within the context of the application, and embedding a BI tool that's highly scalable, like QuickSight, makes total sense. So just as a recap, the three big use cases that we see and what we are building QuickSight for, first is the highly scalable machine learning powered BI tool that can support both interactive dashboards and reports. We have the self-service option where you have simple natural language querying available to end users without any BI expertise, so that they can find answers to their own questions without having to engage a BI team. And third, all of this in an embedded context. So embedded analytics within the SaaS application or within the enterprise applications that you see on a day-to-day basis. These being the core use cases that we see and that we are building the product towards. So, Scott, I'll let you take it from here.
All right, thanks, Jose. Turn it over to Chris.
Yep, absolutely. So what are we seeing? As Scott introduced prior, our being in this business for 20 years, we kind of a little bit see it all, right? And as we go into 2020 and 2021 and going forward, customers are aligning to a cloud strategy of migrating not only all the components, not just their data, but all their analytics capability to the cloud. So they're looking and at that point in time, looking at, all right, I have my legacy BI solution of the ones that we kind of mentioned here, and they're of the mind from what they've shared with us, right, that they have a perspective. Their perspective is a lot of their legacy tools / vendors are old, expensive. From their perspective, they're not investing or innovating, and they want to move to that cloud native platform, right? So not just lift and shift, run my legacy platform in the cloud on a virtual EC2 instance as an example, but something that's very cloud native so I can take advantage of that, right? So to the next. And in reality, a lot of that question gets answered with by our customers. What we hear is a little bit of the default answer is we're moving to Tableau or Power BI. Next. So we've been involved in these projects. We've been involved in these sort of conversations, and we get into situations with customers that are saying, all right, I have this legacy tool. Now keep in mind that these are mode 1, enterprise reporting tools, and a lot of these future states that they're moving towards, as Joseph was saying, was these kind of mode 2 dashboarding tools. And so they get kind of started with these projects. And to the next call out, right? They start along the process of, all right, what really do I have? right? So they start to inventory their existing platform. They say, all right, what's in these reports? Who uses them? Start the process of reverse engineering. And they get kind of 6 months into that whole act, and they're in a little bit of a challenge space, right? Potentially, a lot of the reasons why they have this 12-month horizon is that may be aligned to their legacy contract with their vendor. They want to move. They want to move from the legacy platform to the new platform. They had just renewed their maintenance, and now they're 6 months into the project. And to keep up with a little bit of the football start of the football year, right? They're kind of looking for a Hail Mary, right? Because they have oftentimes they have a long these platforms are potentially 10 years old, right? So there's a lot in them, and they're trying to find the easy button, if you like, right? Once they know what they want to move over, of how are they going to get to this new platform. And then, Scott, the next. They get to this point where they're looking at the hard realities that's before them. And the hard reality is that they're looking to move to a mode 2 product, and that mode 2 product does not equal their mode 1 plus the mode 2 use cases. And as we were sort of discussing in that last kind of analogy, the reality is that when they look at what they have 70% of the use cases that they have are really those mode 1 use cases, and those platforms, as much as they may have started to introduce a Tableau or a Power BI, most of the budget, great majority of the budget, is actually for that legacy platform. And they're discovering that it's much more complex than they kind of initially understood when they got started. And these mode 2 use cases are not going away, right? They're core to support business functions. They're core to enterprise or compliance reporting, right? They're very, very core business capability. And they wind up in a place where now they've started down this migration, and that legacy bill that we sort of reference, that's now not going away. And so now they're paying 2 bills. And they also come to another conclusion, right? The Tableau and Power BI in this example are really actually desktop native, not really cloud native tools, right? So there are a lot of challenges that they're kind of looking to alleviate, and we were saying, like, looking for some Hail Marys. Next. And so being part of this with the customers, we really we were trying to figure out, what is there a cloud native vendor, and obviously AWS being the predominant cloud vendor, will they kind of go and invest in both those mode 1 and those mode 2 use cases? And from our perspective, right, is how do we align to that vendor, in this case, obviously Amazon QuickSight and folks like Jose, on behalf of our customers, to influence that requirement and capability. Next. So as much as we had started our relationship with AWS in kind of the third quarter of 2019, across our business to see how we align in both working to migrate legacy workloads in addition to the data platform services. In Q1 of 2020, before sort of the pandemic hit, we were in Seattle working and talking with the leadership team to say, there's a massive opportunity for a cloud vendor, and specifically for AWS, to really look at the full spectrum of use cases, as Jose was discussing prior, and say, we can help you with the requirements, and for our part, we can help kind of build the tools that customers will need to both assess and then migrate to the capabilities that you build. Right. So in Q1, and it was an interesting process of working with Jose and his colleagues to kind of build the supporting material in AWS context, kind of the narrative that went to senior management to say, we want to go and invest and build out this capability. Next.
Okay.
So now Scott's going to talk a little bit. Yep, Scott, all yours.
Great. Thanks, Chris. So what I wanted to do was go through our point of view on the most commonly used enterprise features of enterprise BI tools, and how QuickSight has rapidly matured to offer those features. So the first one is formatted report outputs, right? So this is the ability to have a report and export the data to Excel, to CSV, to PDF output formats, right? So to date, with QuickSight, we can now generate PDF output and in fact deliver that. We can also, any list or crosstab visualization inside of QuickSight, we can export to Excel and CSV formats. Okay, the next feature is delivery mechanisms. So these would be pull or subscriptions or push via schedule by a service account or API, and burst. So to date, one can schedule a dashboard to be generated and delivered on a schedule with customized subject lines and email bodies along with PDF attachments. You also have the ability to optimize these renderings for viewing on a desktop or mobile devices. In addition, QuickSight has introduced threshold-based alerting, which again, based on a data element passing a threshold, email alerts can be sent out. Okay. The next feature would be enhanced metadata modeling. So here we're talking about semantic layers, folders for data items, basically approaches to make the process of self-service authoring easier. So certainly there have been a lot of enhancements in this area, including support for more than 1,000 fields in a data set. There's an enhanced SQL and expression editor to provide enhanced capabilities and a better experience for those authors who are creating data sets. Also, very critical was the introduction of field folders to allow you to organize data items into subject matter related folders. Along with that are descriptions and tooltips to make the process of authoring a more intuitive experience, right? And it is that intuitive experience that helps drive adoption, right? So the next element here is portal organization and navigation. So what I mean here are kind of the constructs for content. So folders and portals so that you can, when folks self-serve, they know where to find the content they need. Included here is also search, right? So certainly from the beginning, search was part of the QuickSight portal and is quite useful. But also shared and personal folders were introduced. And I think it's the combination of those two things that enhances self-service and the ability to find what you're looking for. The other important piece here is the ability now to have favorites. So users can favorite specific analyses and dashboards and even folders to make those objects that they most use available at their fingertips. The next feature is security. And what we talk about here is object security, row level security, column security for data, and then, if you will, capability security for features, okay? Meaning not every, if someone is an author, they don't automatically get the same rights across all different types of objects. You have the ability to control that a bit. So certainly row level security was part of the product back in 2019. But more recently, column level security was added. Object level security has always been there, so the ability to see or not see an object. Also introduced more recently were custom permissions, right? So this is, you may have a group of folks who are, from a license perspective, authors, yet you don't want them creating data sets. Well, you can use these custom permissions to prevent them from creating data sets, but allow them to create analyses. So again, a refinement of the level of control that you can apply, we think is an important enterprise feature. The next one is a big one, so paginated reports. And by this, we mean pixel perfect reporting, paginated reports, things of that nature, right? The tabular, the 50-page tabular report kind of idea. So introduced recently have been pagination options. So things like column header controls, text wrapping, alignment, the ability to have a totals row that's either pinned or floating. Floating is handy if you've got to scroll down, scroll down through many pages. Grouping and page size control. Also in preview are pixel perfect layouts that allow you to control the exact size and placement of visualizations and objects. Today you can apply sort options using fields that are not used in a visualization. So an example of that might be you want to sort customers. You might have an orders report, but you want to sort the customers by their lifetime revenue without showing lifetime revenue in the analysis, right? So you can do that now with custom sorting. The next one is enhanced formatting. And by this, we mean conditional formatting and conditional rendering. So certainly, QuickSight has long supported conditional formatting of tables and pivot tables, but there's now a feature in preview that allows you to leverage conditional rendering to control visualizations based on parameters and rules. Next one is drill up, drill down, and drill through. So the idea of hierarchical constructs within your data. So drill paths can be created easily in QuickSight analyses, and the ability to pass parameters via URL or navigation actions allow you to create drill through like behaviors. An example would be the ability to create an action that will navigate you from a summary view, perhaps of a client's total order history over time to the individual orders themselves, right? That is a use case we see all the time in the enterprise reporting space. The next one is change management. So, the software development lifecycle, change management, content promotion, and tracking capabilities within these tools. So certainly with the QuickSight APIs that have been introduced, and in particular the template API, you have the ability to promote content from one environment to another. And if you include other services within AWS, such as CloudTrail, you can audit, or you can create user activity audit reporting to understand metrics about your user community and the content they're accessing in your QuickSight environment. And then the last enterprise feature we want to say is critically important here is programmatic access and programmatic interfaces. So the QuickSight APIs provide a programmatic means to manage users and groups, things like data sources, data sets, templates, spice ingestion, the creation of dashboards and analyses, permissions and customizations. You can do it via the command line or various programming languages. Okay, so with that, what I want to do is demo a typical legacy BI report, so we can all kind of get our bearings around what is typical. So 1 second. Okay, so and I may have timed out, so let's see. So this is a typical enterprise report, right? So I've got this report. I've got a number of prompts that I can populate or leave optional. In this case, I'm going to choose the order date. I click finish. All right, so what am I seeing here, right? I'm seeing a tabular report output. I've got my prompt selections highlighted at the top so I understand what I chose. I've got some grouping, and I've got some conditional formatting here. So in this case, anytime there's an order with a quantity of over 1,000 items, it's going to conditionally format that with an orange background. Okay. Now, of course, in the typical kind of enterprise use case, I have the ability to export this to various formats. I can schedule this report. Certainly no doubt you've seen this type of report before, okay? All right, so heading back to, okay. So wanted to talk a moment about the progress, the rapid progress that the QuickSight development team has made with the product. So, if we think back to 2019, which wasn't that long ago, the focus was interactive dashboarding. Row-level security was there. There was very much kind of an external web framework focus to it. AI, ML features were very prominent, but there was limited enterprise reporting functionality in the tool. Jumping ahead to 2020, we saw, much as Chris was describing, an increased focus on enterprise BI. I certainly won't read through all of these, but many of the features that I just described in a previous slide began to appear, began to be part of the tool, okay? Looking to the first half of this year, even more enterprise features were rolled out, including pixel perfect layouts and preview, again, field folders, critically important, enhanced formatting, ability to export an email, threshold alerts, on-sheet controls, and custom visual content. So again, the idea here is that tremendous progress has been made. And certainly we are engaged at a high level with the Amazon QuickSight development team. We continue to hold weekly meetings with that team to offer our perspective and help shape what is delivered. And kind of looking ahead, even more enterprise features. So things like bursting, things like prompted reports, assets as code, which is an important part of what we call Ascentiq, incremental spice refresh. Certainly these are all, they're all on the roadmap or in preview now. And certainly as QuickSight is enhanced, we are enhancing this set of the methods and tooling we have called Ascentiq in parallel with that. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to do was show that same legacy BI report rendered in QuickSight. All right, so we'll switch from the demo report. And what I will do is, so we've got this same report rendered here as a dashboard. So let's go ahead and open that up. Okay, so as you can see, we've effectively got the same report rendered as a QuickSight dashboard. It's built off a data set that we ingest into Spice. It is built on the same Snowflake data source that we saw before being used in the legacy report. I have the same prompts up here on the left, which are known as controls in the QuickSight world. We don't have a prompt page, right? But certainly that is something that is on the roadmap. So I have the ability to change the prompt values, and the data is almost instantly refreshed thanks to Spice. So if we choose retailer type, right, and if I choose department store, right, I quickly see the results of that filtering. I can go back and select all to return that to where it was. Okay, so if we look at customer name here, one thing you'll notice about every QuickSight control is that it has a search bar at the top, right? Which isn't true kind of out of the box with other legacy vendors. So in this case, if I wanted to focus on a single customer called Camping 2000, right? I have the ability to select it here. All right, I can search. It's kind of reading ahead, searching ahead. I can find that individual row and to select it, and it's quite easy to filter. I can then reset this back to be all customers. Okay, so I've got this list, and I have the ability to sort it by the column I've chosen or any number of other members. So if I choose to sort by country, right? I can sort by ascending, descending, or I can actually sort it by any of these other measures, okay? Again, a functionality that isn't necessarily available by default in other tools, right? Sometimes you have to add that in or convert the report to a new format, but it's here by default, okay? So you also see conditional formatting here, right? So again, for any order quantity that's above 1,000, I am highlighting it in orange. I can expand this list to make it larger. I can export it to CSV, and I can export it to Excel. Okay. Also note at the bottom, right? I've got paginated output. I have the ability to set how many rows I want to view to control the pagination. Let me reduce this down again. Another key part here is that a key functionality is that I have the ability to understand how fresh is this data, right? So we have the ability to do this in other tools, but it's something we need to add, right? It's something that is extra. Whereas with QuickSight, this is built in, right? And this is always a question that the user community is asking, right? Because they're making important business decisions based on this. They want to know how recently it's been refreshed. Okay. Lastly, I have the ability to set a schedule for this report. So I have various schedules that I can choose. I can change the report title. I can change the subject line, the body text. I can, if this is a multi-sheet report, I would select the sheet that I want to show up as an image in the email. I can include a PDF attachment. I can choose to optimize the output for desktop or mobile, and then I can decide who I want it to send to, and send a test report to make sure things are working, and just save it and off it goes. Okay, so pretty straightforward. Okay, let's go back to the presentation. Okay, so as part of this, we just want to inform you about the demo that we've got. So we actually have an AWS account where we're running both QuickSight and the legacy platform on an EC2 instance. We're using, we've got a connection to Snowflake, and we've established that data set within QuickSight. I don't know, Chris, if you want to add anything else here.
Yeah, just the only data point is you saw Scott working with the authoring environment within the UI of QuickSight. In a bit here, we're going to show using the SDK and some more command line tools to assist with Ascentiq in the migration of a legacy report.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Okay, so certainly we think that QuickSight is a great destination, but how do you get there, right? How do you migrate? So to assist with this, we have introduced something called Ascentiq, right? Which we refer to as a set of assets, methods, and utilities to accelerate the customer journey to QuickSight. Basically, what we're doing here is leveraging Ascentiq to take inventory of your existing implementations of legacy tools like Cognos, extract those, including user roles and groups, the report specifications, permissions, recipients, metadata models, and then leverage the Amazon QuickSight APIs where possible to drive the reconstruction of those objects within QuickSight. And we like to use the word accelerate, and we choose that because automation is challenging, and what we're trying to do here is get you to the end goal faster, right? Move the ball down the field, and Ascentiq can help you address those tedious parts of a migration, those things that are tedious, labor intensive, and challenging, right? So what are those things, right? The first one is, in order to migrate, you need to understand your current environment, right? So what is the usage of your content? How much is there? What's the scope for migration? What's the complexity of your existing content? And how compatible is it with the tool you want to migrate to? So also diving deeper, understanding your content, like what are the technical details of reports and metadata that you've determined to be in scope for migration such that they can be recreated in the 2B platform. And then there's the task of actually performing the migration. There are several ways to do this. The main, I guess, two ways would be just a straight lift and shift, where you need the details about what exactly needs to be created in the new report to make it match the original. And then there is reimagining, where perhaps you want to take advantage of new functionality in the new tool and kind of consider the existing use cases and move it all forward and reimagine it. Often what we find is a blending of the two approaches. And
so
yeah, go ahead, Chris. Go ahead.
Yeah, and so as we look at this and looking at the challenges that customers were faced, we knew that we needed to, and if you reference kind of my dialogue a little bit earlier in the presentation, we needed to work with customers to help accelerate the assessment and understanding the scope of what was needed to be done. And then after that, we had to, see what we could do to accelerate the replatforming to QuickSight from the legacy platform. And so looking and as we mentioned, going back to the beginning of last year, we set out to how are we going to solve that, right? And so what Scott's going to share with you over the next couple of slides here is a suite of assets and tools that we call Ascentiq. That's going to assist with the assessment and the assessment of the environment and assessment report, in addition to something that we call the Cookbook, which will provide the technical specifications of what needs to be done. What's important about that is, in our prior example, and we've talked to many customers where 6 months, maybe it's 4 months, it took them to get to that point. We're able to get customers to a point where they know what they have, know what they're going to bring with them, and how to go about what needs to be done in a relatively short amount of time, about 6 weeks, right? And then we have the capability through assets as code that Scott's going to demo for you to start to bring a level in bulk the Ascentiq utilities to start to bring over legacy assets onto the QuickSight platform. And then we're iteratively delivering and bringing that functionality over, right? And the good news is, right, is as opposed to being at that place in month 7, we're trying to figure out what to do. In the second month of your project, we're already starting to use programmatic means to move assets over to the QuickSight platform.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, so I want to talk a bit about the Ascentiq migration process. Really, it's comprised of 5 steps. First, in the discover phase, we are extracting and cataloging content and other information from your legacy BI platform. After the discover phase, we assess that content and information to help you understand your environment and determine the scope of the migration. And once that scope is determined, we export those assets and information and convert them to the appropriate formats for processing via the QuickSight APIs to scaffold that content, right? And by scaffold, we mean, let us again move the ball as far down the field as we can, right? Within the context of what's available. And then lastly, we leverage assets as code APIs to run a create process to stand up that scaffolded content in QuickSight. So the first thing I want to talk about as part of that process, the assess part, is something we call the Ascentiq dashboard. It's a key artifact of the migration assessment And it provides you that overview of your legacy implementation, right? So gaining that information about your environment and your user community is a critical first step, and this enables you to do that. It summarizes key metrics about Cognos or your legacy tool that impact migration. We see those key metrics as usage and relatedly amount, complexity, and compatibility. So usage is based on audit, complexity is based on your legacy reporting, what features are being used, how hard are those things to understand and comprehend such that you can recreate them in the new platform. And then finally, compatibility is, okay, of the features that are present in your legacy content, what is the analog in QuickSight, or what is the workaround? You have the ability to filter by type, by characteristic, and really this drives the determination of your migration scope. And part and parcel of that is a rationalization process, right? No one wants to migrate forward content that no one is using, right? That is spending money for no reason. So rationalization is a very critical first step. This helps you do that, okay? And again, what we're looking at here is a high-level dashboard, but understand that the low-level details sit behind this, and we have the ability to query that as we wish to get down to the lowest level. Okay, so closer look at the Ascentiq assessment dashboard. So this is, we see the three metrics. We see usage, complexity, and compatibility. In usage, we see details about how the user community is leveraging the legacy environment, including things like which reports are being run versus which ones are being viewed as saved output. What are the average user sessions over time? What are the different types of components leveraged in the platform? And what types of report outputs are generated and how many? Complexity, again, shows the count of total reports, then some details on complexity scoring. So a little detail about scoring here. We have weighted each of the components that we can identify in the legacy environment, in each legacy report, with a complexity weighting, and then we score each report accordingly. So in this example, one can see that this report population has layout component references in 32% of the reports. Details like this are important to understand because they drive how we approach migration. In the case of layout component references, we would want to understand this better to see how we can solve for that in QuickSight. So today, layout component references aren't something that's in QuickSight natively, so we would have to understand how we would kind of adapt to this. So in looking at compatibility, this is where we understand how well the features leveraged in this report population compare with what's available on QuickSight and where we might have gaps. So interestingly, this data is showing prompt pages and conditional rendering as areas of challenge, but understand that conditional rendering is actually a feature in preview and prompt pages are on the roadmap. So again, this is an example of just how rapidly this product, QuickSight, is maturing. So if we go a little bit deeper into usage, we see a lot more detail around user behavior. So things like total user sessions within the span of our audit, what are the run requests, what are the view requests, what do the hours of the day in terms of usage look like, unique login sessions, etc. Again, lots and lots of detail that helps you understand the user community. We have individual dashboards for complexity and compatibility as well, which will get you down to the individual report level to understand what is driving both those complexity and compatibility scores, and again, help you scope the reports that you want to include in the migration, right? It may not all be about usage in terms of user audit. It may be about feature usage as well. Okay, the next artifact that I want to talk about is something that we call the Cookbook. So the Cookbook is, if you will, a technical specification guide for legacy reports. And we call it the Cookbook because it reveals the ingredients of existing reports. Sorry about that. Existing reports without time-consuming discovery and analysis or the need for deep legacy BI skills. And it allows us to leverage more cost-efficient resourcing for manual migration work streams. So the key here is that there is less effort required here to assess reports. We have an example of a customer who kind of came to us after they had done, we introduced this cookbook to them after they had done their assessment. And what took them 4 months plus, we were able to do with the cookbook here, in less than a week, right? So again, tremendously accelerates the process of information gathering and assessment for migrations.
And as we speak about,
So actually,
that slide's not building it. And yeah, one point there too with the cookbook is, as we sort of talk about the process that we're going to, the next sort of demo of going through the migration process, the important bit is, we're in the, the important bit here, and I can just talk about it on this slide here, right, is if we look at where we are in the phase of the migration, so we know what we're going to move, we know what the scope of the migration. We've done some work. This is just a snapshot of a Jira project. Now we're going to go through the process of running utilities to migrate to the QuickSight platform. And as I have designated here, that's after a level of work has been done around architecting and engineering the QuickSight kind of dev environment that sits inside of a dev account. So what Scott's going to walk through next is, all right, so now I need to go ahead and I need to, I'm going to run utilities through Asset as code, where I'm going to create folders, I'm going to create the subfolders, I'm going to recreate and deploy the reports that have been converted into those folders. I'm going to view those now on the QuickSight, in the QuickSight portal to see that everything has been migrated over. And then I'm going to return back to that cookbook report Scott was just speaking of, right? And I'm going to validate the functionality. I know how that report is to behave from the cookbook. Now I'm going to validate how much functionality was able to be migrated through the programmatic means, right? In some points, in most points, we're going to have to remediate the report. Some parts of it we'll have to do through the authoring process. As Scott mentioned before, there may be some functionality and some gaps, right, that are moments in time, but that's going to require a level of negotiation with the business, and which is the nature of this, all right? And then we're going to publish that report and then go through the kind of BI ops to move that production-ready report from the pre-prod environment into the production environment.
Great, thank you, Chris. All right, so let us demonstrate, we'll give a demonstration of, of the convert and create phase. So first we see that we don't have a data source connection to our Snowflake source, nor do we have a shared folder structure in place that mimics our legacy BI environment. So we're going to create those objects and structure via the QuickSight APIs. So the first thing we do is we create a data source connection. Right, again, we're using the APIs here. And then the next thing we're going to do is create a set of folders with corporate reporting as the root folder, and then a number of subfolders, and then permission them at the same time. All right, so development, financials, logistics, marketing, and resources. And those builds are in process. Next, we're going to create a data set based on that Snowflake data source. And then we're going to create a series of analyses, again, based on the information that we were able to glean from the legacy environment. And these are all scaffolded analyses. Okay, so once we've got that, we can flip back over to our QuickSight environment. And if we look at the share folders, now we see a corporate reporting folder, and then those 5 folders that we talked about creating via the automation. So they're here. We go into development, and if we go into the scaffolded report that got created as part of the process, okay, as you can see, we weren't able to bring over everything from the source report, so we don't see the logo and we don't see the conditional formatting. Understand that conditional formatting as part of the API is actually something that's being worked on right now. But you know, the takeaway here is that we're able to scaffold a considerable amount of what needed to be created, which again has accelerated the entire process and, you know, if you will, move the ball down the field. So again, the missing items are conditional formatting and the logo. So we can address the logo first. We add a visual. We click on the visual. We choose custom content. We customize the visual. I need to get my logo URL. I drop it in here. I apply that. I choose to show it as an image and fit to height. And now what I need to do is I need to move this logo up here and resize it. All right, so that was one thing I needed to do in addition. All right, then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to apply the conditional formatting. So let me close the field well here. Let me choose conditional formatting. So let me flip over real quick to the cookbook, right? Because the cookbook is going to tell me. So here's an example of the cookbook, right? And what we're seeing here is some summary information about the report up top. Where does this report live? What is this? What are the packages it's associated with? That information is all here. I've got my complexity score here as well. And this, again, is that technical specification. I've got a prompt page called prompt page 1. I've got a report page called page 1. And I know that on page 1, I've got the conditional formatting. So if I look here, and this is it's saying the container name is called list 1. The type is list. These are all the fields that are in it in the order that they're in there. What value is being used for the label, the item value, any row spanning or list grouping. In this case, I see that the field called quantity has a conditional style called quantity conditional style. So if I click on this, I'm actually taken to this conditional style table that tells me how this is derived. Under what conditions should the conditional format turn on? And in this case, it's where the value is greater, where the value for the column quantity from list or from the query Q list is greater than 1,000, and when it is, style the background color with this hex code, which happens to be orange. So if I flip back to, so if I flip back to this, I know that the column is quantity, so I just simply select it. And then I want to add a background color for quantity where it is greater than or equal to 1,000. And for the color, I can choose a custom color, and I believe it was FFA 500, and I apply that. And there we go. So now I've got conditional formatting added in. Okay. So just an example of how one can use the cookbook to move from the scaffolded report to the finalized report and use it for sort of a QA process as well, right? Because we want to validate that all the reports are correct after we've moved them along or we've migrated them over to the platform. Okay, so how to get started? Chris, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, thanks, Scott. Exciting times. I know we've all been working on this for quite a bit, and we'd like to thank our Amazon colleagues for all of their hard work in getting the platform to the stage it is today, and excited for what's coming here in the coming months, and for customers to be able to take advantage of it. To that end, one of the things that we're kind of a little bit announcing today, and you can see in kind of the progressions that we showed you this information. So we showed this information to you in a way of is QuickSight ready for your enterprise reporting use cases and capability? And so to that end, we've created a marketplace offering to get you hands-on, both from a design perspective of how to design your environment and how to build your enterprise reports, and using AWS kind of nomenclature here. We've created an immersion day specifically for enterprise reports. It actually just launched. I think it was initially available just through our Ironside marketplace page. And for the first 5 customers that go into marketplace via their AWS account, if you need help with how to do that, you can contact us or your AWS rep. And for the first 5 requests, we're gonna provide that for 50% off again for the first 5. From that, then you'll be in a situation, hopefully, where you've got your environment set up and you have an understanding of Amazon of QuickSight for your enterprise reporting capability. We get pretty deep into all the tools and that were used in Scott's demo today. From that, additionally available on the marketplace are the migration tools, the Ascentiq, the assessment, and the Cookbook. They're available additionally, in addition to just the general process of engaging Ironside to help with your migration. That is also available on the marketplace. And we'll be sending out when it gets a little bit closer. But as Scott mentioned, we work weekly with the AWS team to increase the capabilities on the platform, and then as they increase the capabilities of the tools, then we're additionally enhancing the Ascentiq offering of tools, and we will be having an update of today's presentation and demo out at reInvent in Las Vegas. So please look for us out in Las Vegas in a few months. So that's it for today. It looks actually we did a good job on time. I guess we may have a few moments here for questions if there are any, but I'd like to thank everyone for your time, and we look forward to working with you in both the immersion day and then in a fuller project associated with your migration.
Okay, thanks very much, Chris. So I think we are just about out of time. If you do have any questions, you can simply send them to us, and we'll do our best to answer them. All right, thanks all.